Imagine a 20-year-old prince standing at the edge of an empire he's about to inherit, surrounded by enemies who think he's too young, too reckless, too inexperienced to rule. Within 13 years, that same young man would conquer the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen, march his army over 3,000 miles from Greece to India, and never lose a single battle. His name was Alexander, and by the time he was done, the entire world would simply call him the Great. This isn't a legend. This is real history pieced together from ancient historians, archaeological digs, and the ruins of cities he built along the way. Today we're tracing the true story of how a boy from a small Greek kingdom became one of the most powerful conquerors who ever lived. This is the rise of Alexander the Great. Alexander was born in 356 BC in the city of Pella, capital of Macedon, a rugged kingdom in northern Greece that the more civilized southern Greek city-states often looked down on as backward. His father was King Philip II, a brilliant and ruthless military reformer who had spent years transforming Macedon's army into the most advanced fighting force in the ancient world. His mother, Olympias, was a fierce and deeply ambitious woman who believed her son was destined for greatness, and she made sure he believed it too. From a young age, Alexander stood out. According to ancient historians, as a boy he tamed a wild, unrideable horse named Bucephalus simply by noticing the animal was afraid of its own shadow and calmly turning it toward the sun. Philip was reportedly so moved that he told Alexander he'd need to find a kingdom worthy of him, because Macedon alone wouldn't be big enough. At 13, Philip hired the most brilliant mind in Greece to tutor his son, the philosopher Aristotle. For several years, Alexander studied science, medicine, and philosophy under him, developing a lifelong love of Homer's Iliad, which he reportedly kept under his pillow for the rest of his life. Alexander's military career began early. At just 18, he commanded the powerful companion cavalry at the Battle of Chaeronea in 338 BC, a decisive clash where Philip's Macedonian army crushed a combined force of Greek city-states, including Athens and Thebes. Alexander's cavalry charge against Thebes's legendary sacred band was seen as instrumental to the victory, proving he wasn't just a king's son. He was a genuine battlefield commander. But the relationship between Alexander and his father grew tense as Philip took another wife, and rumors swirled about who would inherit the throne. Then in 336 BC, everything changed in an instant. While attending his daughter's wedding celebration in the theater at Aegae, King Philip was assassinated by one of his own bodyguards. The motive remains debated by historians to this day. What is certain is that Alexander, only 20 years old, was proclaimed king almost immediately. He moved fast and ruthlessly to secure his throne, eliminating rival claimants, then turned south to remind the restless Greek city-states exactly who was now in charge. When Thebes revolted, Alexander's army destroyed it almost entirely, a brutal warning that cemented his authority across Greece. With Greece under control, Alexander turned to a far greater target, the Persian Empire, the largest and wealthiest power on earth, ruled by King Darius III. In 334 BC, he led an army of roughly 40,000 soldiers across the Hellespont Strait into Asia Minor. Legend says that as his ship approached the shore, he hurled a spear into the ground and declared the land his by right of conquest. His first major test came at the Battle of the Granicus River, where his cavalry smashed through Persian forces guarding the coast. Then came a moment that has echoed through history for over 2,000 years. In the city of Gordium, Alexander encountered the legendary Gordian Knot, an impossibly tangled cord that, according to prophecy, only the future ruler of Asia could untie. Rather than patiently unraveling it, He reportedly drew his sword and simply sliced it in half, a bold act that became a symbol of his entire approach to problems. In 333 BC, Alexander faced Darius directly at the Battle of Issus. Despite being outnumbered, his brilliant tactics broke the Persian lines, and Darius fled the battlefield, leaving behind his own family, whom Alexander captured but treated with notable respect and honor. Rather than chasing Darius immediately, Alexander turned toward the Mediterranean coast, methodically securing Persian territory. The island city of Tyre resisted him fiercely, forcing a grueling 7-month siege where his engineers built a massive causeway out into the sea just to reach its walls. When Tyre finally fell in 332 BC, it sent a clear message. Resistance against Alexander came at a devastating cost. He then marched into Egypt, where he was welcomed nearly as a liberator, since Egyptians had long resented Persian rule. Egyptian priests crowned him pharaoh, and Alexander made a pilgrimage into the desert to the oracle of Siwa, where, according to ancient accounts, he was told he was the son of the god Zeus Ammon. Whether or not he truly believed this, the moment fed into his growing sense of destiny. While in Egypt, he also founded a new coastal city, naming it after himself, Alexandria. That city would become one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world, home to its famous library for centuries after his death. In 331 BC, Alexander marched east for the final showdown with Darius at the Battle of Gaugamela, near modern-day Iraq. Persian forces vastly outnumbered the Macedonians, with ancient sources describing an enormous army bolstered by war elephants and scythed chariots. Yet Alexander's discipline, speed, and tactical brilliance carried the day once again. Darius fled the field for the last time, and shortly afterward was betrayed and killed by his own officers, effectively ending nearly 200 years of Persian imperial rule. Alexander marched triumphantly into the great Persian capitals of Babylon, Susa, and finally Persepolis, the ceremonial heart of the Persian Empire, where he claimed an almost unimaginable treasury of gold and silver. During his time there, the royal palace of Persepolis burned to the ground under circumstances still debated by historians. Some say it was deliberate revenge for Persia's earlier destruction of Athens. Others suggest it was an accident during a night of celebration. Either way, with Darius dead and Persepolis in ashes, Alexander now controlled the largest empire the world had ever known, and he had only just turned 25. Most conquerors would have stopped there. Alexander kept going, pushing his army deeper into Central Asia, through modern-day Afghanistan and brutal mountain terrain, fighting fierce local resistance for years. During this campaign, he married Roxana, a noblewoman from Bactria, in what may have been both a political alliance and a genuine romance. Then, in 326 BC, Alexander pressed further, invading the Indian subcontinent. At the Battle of the Hydaspes River, he faced King Porus, whose forces included war elephants, animals Alexander's men had never faced in battle before. Despite the challenge, he won again, and was reportedly so impressed by Porus's courage that he let him keep his kingdom as an ally rather than a captive. But Alexander's army, after nearly a decade of relentless campaigning far from home, had reached its breaking point. At the Hydaspes River, his exhausted, homesick soldiers refused to march any farther east. For the first time in his life, Alexander was forced to turn back, not by an enemy but by his own men. The retreat through the harsh Gedrosian desert proved even deadlier than many of his battles, costing thousands of lives to heat, thirst, and starvation. Alexander eventually made his way back to Babylon, the city he intended to make the new capital of his sprawling empire. He was already planning further campaigns, possibly into Arabia, when in June of 323 BC, he fell suddenly ill after a period of fever, weakness, and severe pain. Within about 2 weeks, he was dead at just 32 years old. The exact cause remains one of history's enduring mysteries, with theories ranging from malaria and typhoid fever to poisoning, though no single explanation has ever been proven conclusively. Alexander died without a clear heir, and his vast empire, stretching from Greece to India, quickly fractured among his rival generals in the decades after. Yet his impact far outlived his empire's unity. He spread Greek language, art, and culture across 3 continents, founding around 20 cities that bore his name, most famously Alexandria in Egypt, which still stands today. Historians still study his campaigns as masterworks of military strategy, and his life became the measuring stick against which countless future conquerors, from Julius Caesar to Napoleon, judged their own ambitions. And that's the true story of Alexander the Great, a young prince from a small kingdom who, through brilliance, ambition, and sheer force of will, built an empire that reshaped the ancient world in barely 13 years. He never lost a battle, and even in death, his legend only continued to grow. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through history, give the video a like and subscribe for more true stories of the world's greatest conquerors and legends. We'll see you in the next one.